Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the World Cyber Arena North American Hearthstone Pro Qualifier. This is the final day. My name is TJ Osmond Sanders, and once again, I'm joined with Kevin Monk Dong. How you doing, man?
To be honest, TJ, I'm a little sad today because...
Why are you sad, Monk?
Because this is our fourth and final day of the WCA. It all ends here today, and today we're going to find out the fourth player to qualify for the WCA American Pro Finals.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic day filled with Hearthstone action. But first off, we've explained it over the past couple of days, but some of you still may be wondering what exactly the World Cyber Arena is. Well, it is a big event that's going to happen in China at the end of the year, and Monk actually had a chance to compete in the World Cyber Arena 2014, the Hearthstone tournament. What was your experience like over there?
Of course, it was all very nice. They treated us all very well. 5-star hotels. We got to meet all the famous players in China, not only in Hearthstone, but in Crossfire and in Dota 2 as well. Also, we got to meet legendary Warcraft 3 player Sky, who is pretty much the biggest guy in esports in China.
That's pretty exciting, and I'm sure this year it'll be sort of the same. And we've actually had 3 days so far of the World Cyber Arena qualifiers. And we've seen a lot of pretty great competition. We had 16 players at the beginning. We put them into 4 groups of 4 players. Each day we did play out a group, and the winner of each group is moving on to the qualifier final, which is going to be taking place on June 1st and 2nd. And that has a $12,000 prize pool for Hearthstone alone and a $250,000 prize pool for Hearthstone at the end of the year when it comes to the actual World Cyber Arena in China. So these guys are going to be really wanting to win. There's actually been 3 Archon players so far.
Yeah, I feel like that is the story of the tournament. Of course, there is 1 Archon player in each of the groups, and today is just the same. Today we'll have Purple Drank in the groups today, and he'll be wanting to join his teammates. We can see all the players that qualified in the previous days: Amaz on Monday, Firebed on Tuesday, and Zillia on Wednesday. And it's just interesting to note that all 3 players, they were originally in the first slots, so our production team actually didn't have to move the names around. It was a little less work for them, so maybe if they're really lazy, I think they'll be cheering for Purple Drank as well.
Yeah, I'm sure all the rest of the guys on Team Archon are going to be cheering for Purple Drank as well. It'd be a pretty cool and interesting thing for them, at least, to have all 4 of the players that enter this tournament from the qualifier to be able to make it through to that land. They'll all hop on the same plane. They all live in the same house right now, including Amaz, who's there for a while. So that would be a pretty interesting development. But there is actually a really tough group today that Purple Drank is going to have to get through.
Yeah, of course. Purple Drank will have to face against StrifeCro, regarded as one of the top, if not the top player in the world, although he has been struggling a bit lately. Then we'll have, I would say maybe even the featured match of the day, Reynad versus Chalky. Of course, they're the best of friends, known as known for always walking together hand in hand, strolling down the street at every single event.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of rivalry has brewed between those guys in the past. I remember Chalky met Reynad in one of the old ESL King of the Hill tournaments, and that's where that whole thing started. But it was a long time ago. I'm sure now they are frolicking through fields of flowers, holding each other's hands, talking about Hearthstone. Maybe not, but that would be a good sight to behold. But make sure you guys are tweeting at us at WCA_America. Let us know your predictions for the day. Let us know what you thought of the games that have happened the rest of the week and what you guys think of the possibility of maybe 4 Archon players being the 4 players to go to that land. You can also use the hashtag WCA2015. You won't only get information about Hearthstone. You'll also get information about WCA's upcoming Crossfire, Heroes of the Storm, as well as Dota 2 tournaments. So you'll have schedules, brackets, all of that sort of stuff there. But we should probably start talking about the first matchup that we're going to be able to see today. It is going to be Purple Drank versus StrifeCro. Now, you mentioned a little bit about those before, but why don't you go a little more in-depth about these players?
Yeah, I feel like StrifeCro, everyone really knows StrifeCro. He is possibly one of the most successful Hearthstone players of all time, always ranked really high in Go-To Gamers, and basically at the start of GVG, he was by far the best player, but ever since then, he's been kind of struggling in the tournament scene. At C-Story Cup, he finished pretty much last in his group in the round of 32, and also at ESL Katowice, he was seeded into the round of 16, but unfortunately, he fell there as well.
so we are going to take a look at these guys' deck lineups here. For StrifeCro, we have Warlock, Druid, and Hunter. And for Purple Drink, or I guess he'll just be referred to as Purple, it's going to be Druid, Rogue, and Warrior in the first matchup for these guys. It's going to be that Hunter versus the Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue. It's pretty interesting. I would have to imagine that StrifeCro will be playing a face Hunter because, I mean, who plays mid-range Hunter these days besides Amaz? That being said, a player by the name of Root Era got ranked number 1 legend just earlier this week with a mid-range Hunter deck. But of course, as we suspected, it is going to be a face Hunter.
Indeed. And this is a pretty rough matchup for Rogue. A lot of it comes down to whether or not they have the ability to race. Because the Hunter is just going to put them on the clock, put them on so much pressure. There's not a lot of ways that Rogue can block damage. They can clear the board, but a lot of times they have to clear the board, develop a threat, and then race in time before the Hunter kills them.
Yeah, pretty interesting from Purple Drank that he kept both his healing cards. I've heard players like Zalay and Firebat say that, of course, Purple is Archon's coach, and one of the ways that he helps them in terms of coaching is he's really good at mulligans. He really thinks kind of outside the box, and he makes players, he makes the players that he coaches reconsider what they're mulliganing every single time. Because, for example, even though the heal bot is very good in this matchup, you probably won't get get to use it until turn 5, and by then you might not be able to stem the damage from the face Hunter.
Yeah, that's very true. But then there can also be times when the Hunter's out of cards and he top decks exactly what he needs, and you wish you had just a little bit more health, and your anti-heal bot just didn't come soon enough. So Purple is on the coin though, and he does have the coin SI agent next turn to be able to make a power play.
Yeah.
But when you don't have an answer to the Leper Gnome on turn 1, you know that it's going to do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, Leper Gnome is at least going to get 4 damage in, and probably 5 if you include the Glaive Zuba buff as well. This hand, it's alright for StrifeCro, but usually the R&B Gal is really not very good in this matchup because all you can silence is really like a Violet Teacher, perhaps a big Edmund Van Cleef.
Or something that's all oiled up.
Something that's all oiled up. We discussed this yesterday about why creatures that have oil buffs on them get attack. It's like if you slather, if I slather myself in oil, do I get more attack?
Are you stronger?
Yeah,
you're harder to catch.
That's true.
Maybe the oil buff should give them stealth.
Yeah, that's a pretty good draw for StrifeCro. Now he has something to develop. Otherwise, his turn would probably have been just to attack and re-equip the weapon, which is, I would say, a much weaker play.
For sure.
And there's also the possibility that StrifeCro could be considering just saving the Wolffighter to the next turn, because on the next turn, you'll be able to combine it with the Abusive Sergeant as well.
Yeah, I think that's why it took so long on that turn 2 play. He was deciding whether or not he wanted to use the Abusive Sergeant, because he was saying, well, maybe that Glaive Zuka is going to make it harder for me to play next turn, and I'll still get nearly the same amount of damage, but he didn't feel like floating a mana in that situation.
Tracking is really interesting from StrifeCro. It's not a card that we see in a lot of Phase Hunter decks, but it makes sense, especially if you're running Leroy Jenkins in your deck, just getting that extra bit of burst out. And oftentimes, Phase Hunter does have problems fitting in that 1 extra mana somewhere in there.
So I think this is most likely between Wolf Rider and Kill Command. But there is some merit to the Haunted Creeper. Haunted Creeper is tougher to remove, but since he knows that he'll be discarding a Kill Command, it seems unlikely that he keep it. He wants to try and do as much damage as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that was yet another dilemma for StrifeCro, because if you play the Wolf Rider this turn, he'll run into the same problem with Abusive Sergeant not being able to get used in the future turns. But I think he decided to use the Wolf Rider because he saw that Purple Drank had such a hard time removing the Wolf Rider in the previous turn, so you might as well suspect, oh, okay, he's probably going to have the same problems dealing with the Wolf Rider on this turn as well.
So we see a second Earthen Ring Farseer for Purple here. So that's 14 points of healing in his first 9 cards.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't get to talk too much about Purple Drank in the introduction portion, but the thing with Purple is he really likes to bring decks with tech cards that a lot of people don't think of. For example, at the Pinnacle 4 tournament, where he finished in third place, he brought a warrior with Zombie Chow and Doomsayer. Now, we've seen Doomsayer used before, but the combination of Doomsayer and Zombie Chow really makes me think that deck was really focused on something. And that's probably it was probably an anti-Face Hunter and anti-Mech Mage deck.
Yeah.
And it worked out fairly well for him. In that tournament as well, though, one criticism of Purple Drake, even by his teammates like Amaz and Firebat, who were casting the tournament, was that perhaps Purple Drake played a little bit greedily, and you can see that maybe from the keep of the anti-kill bot. That being said, keeping the anti-kill bot seems certainly to be doing a lot of work here.
Oh yeah, it comes down right on curve, and it always feels good when you can actually play the anti-kill bot in a turn where you're actually not threatened by much on the board. With just a Haunted Creeper there, he's able to play it and not really think twice about it. So, still with the Earthen Ring Farseer in his hand. And StrifeCro is actually starting to run out of damage. Eagle Horn Bow, not the best draw for this situation, just because he's already got a weapon equipped, spending 3 mana this turn to really effectively do 0 damage. I mean, 6 damage over the course of the next 2 turns, but might be a little bit too slow.
Yeah.
He's still got to get through 23 health from his perspective.
Yeah.
26 health from our perspective.
Yeah, typically the Oil Rogue, it really has to have a plan of racing your opponent, so it might not even be able to do the trades that Purple Drink did. For example, he traded 2 3/3s into Wolf Riders this game, but because of the hand that Purple Drink has got and because of the tech choices that he made, 2 Earthen Ring Farseers and an anti-kill bot in his deck, he's able to do this because he might have the possibility just to develop a board early on and then to race in the following turns with the Oil, with Blade Flurry, Deadly Poison, and even an Eviscerate.
Yeah.
Oh, Backstab's going to be pretty good there as well.
Yeah. Not only does it clear off this creature, but it's also a way for him to combo. And he can now play the Oil this turn.
Yeah. Purple Drank decides, okay, it's time to switch gears.
Aggression.
And now it's StrifeCro that's going to be in danger at this point. Purple Drank, he should count up his damage, and he decides, okay, I probably need the extra damage from my Deadly Poison in combination with the Blade Flurry.
Yeah. And it feels like StrifeCro's had some pretty powerful turns here. He's done a lot of damage. I mean, without that healing, this would actually be the game-ending turn. Because he's already healed for 11 damage. He'd be at effectively 4 health.
Yeah. And this second Earthen Ring Farseer isn't going to make any impact, actually, because Purple Drake, he has 16 damage just from his hand alone. So even if StrifeCro somehow miraculously clears this board, he's going to be dead. Yeah, with a 6 attack dagger, attack, Blade Flurry, and then Eviscerate.
Yeah,
exactly
for sure.
16 damage.
Mm-hmm. He's going to look for a way out, but, I mean, of course, he doesn't know how much burst is exactly sitting in hand. He can probably guess, judging by how he held back his dagger charge, that there's another weapon buff or Blade Flurry somewhere in there. But at this stage, you just sort of have to go for it. Hope he doesn't have it. Do as the Face Hunter does.
Yep. StrifeCro, from his perspective, he might think that, okay, maybe I can win this game. But with so much damage in Purple Drank's hand, I think maybe Purple Drank will just go for some VM and just not attack with his minions at all. Show him that, yeah, I had the exact lethal here.
Yeah. Nope.
Eviscerate a minion, maybe? 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Yeah. Well, that's a good victory from Purple Drank, taking an unfavorable matchup and winning it. And that's just goes to show you those tech cards. I guess you can't really call them tech cards, but that's a lot of healing.
Yeah, exactly.
To put in Rogue. He has at least 1 anti-heal bot, probably just 1, and then 2 Earthen Ring Farseers.
Yeah, it's actually going to be really difficult for StrifeCro to come back from this position. Normally when you're down 0-1, you're like, okay, maybe I can come back. But with the rest of Purple Drank's lineup of Warrior and of Druid, it's actually going to be really difficult. Many players, pro players especially, they actually think Druid is favorable against Hunter. And of course, no matter what type of Warrior you're running, you're always going to be favorable against Face Hunter.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely going to be rough for him to find a win. And I actually thought it was a little, maybe not uncharacteristic of StrifeCro, but He doesn't a lot of times put Face Hunter in his Conquest Best of 5 lineups. He only does it if he thinks it's absolutely going to be the strongest choice, if he's going to be able to take quick wins with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was actually hoping to get Rogue first, and I'm sure that he was expecting to win in that Rogue matchup.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think StrifeCro, one of the reasons I respect StrifeCro a lot is that no matter he brings decks that he thinks are best. He's not used to being just an all control player or an all aggro player. For example, Chaki is mainly known for aggro decks, and for someone like Savitz, he's mainly known for control decks. He decides, okay, whatever I bring, it's going to be what I think is best to win, what's most likely to win, and I think that's something he shares with a player like Kalento. Kalento's also known for playing a lot of Face Hunter decks when he thinks it's good, playing Zoo when he thinks it's good as well.
Yeah, a lot of players will say that Face Hunter, Midrange Druid, and Zoo Warlock are 3 of the strongest decks right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if those are the 3 that StrifeCro actually has. And we are going to get to see a Druid mirror matchup here, you can see on your screen.
My favorite matchup in all of Hearthstone, maybe?
The Druid mirror matchup?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
I was going to say, that's probably good that it's not at all.
It's, to be honest, if I have to be frank, it's probably my least favorite matchup because it often feels like it's decided in the first 2 turns.
Yeah.
Depending on who draws the Wild Growth or Innervates. And with the release of Emperor Thorzen, if both players draw somewhat equally, then it's whoever draws the first Emperor.
Yeah, and whoever gets that initiative on the board first is... Druids just don't have a way to deal with big creatures and develop their own creatures at the same time. Either they're spending their turn removing or they're spending their turns building up their board. So if one player ramps up a lot quicker than the other player, it's just a huge advantage because it feels like the player that didn't ramp up as quickly is playing on the back foot the whole game.
Yeah. That being said, StrifeCro is the one with Wild Growth, and he's starting off as player 2, so... generally, if the player 1 has Wild Growth and player 2 doesn't, versus if player 2 has Wild Growth and player 1 doesn't, I feel like player 1 gets much more of an advantage because player 1, he's usually 2 mana ahead, whereas it's with this perspective, it's more like StrifeCro, he just got an extra card and he gets to start first.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they just switch roles. Still no Wild Growth, but as far as their hands go, very, very similar. We're going to see matching shades. StrifeCro is going to have a slight advantage because his shade's going to come out first. They both have keepers. They both have a solid 5-drop. The big thing here, since neither player got a huge advantage at the start from big Wild Growth plays, I think, like you mentioned earlier, Emperor Thorsan or even sometimes Ancient of Lore can be a big difference. Because having more cards available to you, having more options each turn, a lot of times the first player that can refill their hand with Ancient of Lore can come out ahead.
Yeah, definitely true. Playing Ancient of Lore also allows you to draw into your combo more quickly. But I do feel like this matchup that it's all about who can get the early advantage because Druid oftentimes it can't retake a board deficit early on in the game. It doesn't have an Equality Consecrate, for example. It doesn't have a Brawl. It doesn't have big Blade Flurry turns.
The days of savagery are long gone.
True. But I did see, if you saw the Trollodon video today, this player, he played Blingtron and Savagery. Basically, his deck would be like complete garbage if he didn't draw into Blingtron. He got a Gorehowl off the Blingtron too against Forsen.
Wow, that's...
Imagine how pissed Forsen was when that happened.
I can only imagine. So, StrifeCro last turn actually used Wild Growth just because he didn't really have any strong plays. Even though he wasn't curving into anything, that mana is still going to be useful later on. Like this turn, he's not going to be able to use the mana. Well, he could, but it's unlikely.
I think kind of like Lothep here because it can test opposing Lotheps and opposing Sludge Belchers that your opponent will probably play on turn 5.
Yeah.
And you can actually even, if you draw into plays later on in the game, you can save Azure Drake and swipe for turn 9, which is just really powerful in the Druid Mirror.
Because a lot of times that 5 damage is usually just a little bit out of reach of Druids. And usually they have to expend a swipe and a hero power in order to reach that threshold where they can kill Sludge Belchers in a hit or Ancient of Lores in a hit. So
The trade was certainly interesting. So, I guess the reason he made that trade was because you've seen a keeper already from your opponent's hand, and your opponent can't actually Wrath, and he can't actually Wrath because of the Loatheb, right?
yeah.
So there's actually no good way for your opponent to clear this Shade.
Yeah, and even if he did use Keeper to clear off the Shade this turn, he'd be using Keeper, and that's it, because he has 5 mana. So then you've effectively gained quite a foothold on the board, because you'll have a 5/5 matching up against their 2/4. And this, he pretty much is saying that you're most likely going to be trading. If you don't have that, you're going to be trading it with the Shade anyway, so...
Oh, that feels so bad. It's basically like if you make this trade, you're giving your opponent a free keeper.
Yeah.
And Ancient of Lore, what a great top deck.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if he didn't draw
Big
that,
draw.
he would have had to play his Azure Drake, which meant that his turn 9 play would be possibly a lot weaker. And now StrifeCro, there's no reason for him to trade here, I feel. Just go face, be the aggressor, and force your opponent to make the trade. And basically what happens here is that because you're being the aggressor, you're going to be able to get your opponent in Force of Nature combo range first. So when he's ever in that range of being threatened by that combo, he's going to have to make suboptimal plays in order to stay alive in future turns. And while you're going to be able to make the optimal plays every single turn, you can just win that way, even if you don't have combo in your hand.
The threat of combo is many times just as powerful as the actual combo itself. Huh.
Yep, Purple Jank is forced to make that trade once again, and wow, like we said, Azure Drake and
man.
Swipe.
Such a powerful turn. He is going to float a mana from the Innervate, but the power from this turn is just so hard to resist.
I don't think he minds the least bit.
No.
Yeah, Purple
at all.
Jank knows what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Purple Jank was playing in the Pinnacle 4 tournament, one thing I really liked about him was he had really nice reactions to plays, especially when things were going wrong for him. So, in a way, I hope like some things go more wrong for him, because I really love those expressions.
Well, he can actually Azure Drake and clear this Ancient of Lore off with Wrath.
Wow. It's pretty amazing. The other play is you can even Cenarius here.
Yeah.
Possibly buff up your minions,
Yeah.
but I think this is more stable, especially because if you buff up your minions, you give your opponent BGH value as well.
Yeah.
And this is just, yeah, how is your opponent going to deal with this board as Druid?
Yeah.
3 minions that they're so, you need Swipe, you need Wrath, but even a Swipe plus Wrath combo, it would only deal with 2 of the minions, plus you don't get to develop your board at the same time, like you mentioned. Whoa, I did not expect that. Okay.
Some next level plays there, but StrifeCro is going to tie it up 1-1, and it was just like you said at the beginning. StrifeCro just ramped up a little bit quicker. He got both Wild Growths at the start there, and it allowed him those power plays like the being able to Azure Drake or being able to use the Ancient of Lore exactly when he top decked it to draw into the Innervate, to draw into the possibility of Azure Drake Swipe. So really well played.
Yeah, I felt like that was a key game for StrifeCro to win, because if he didn't win that, Purple Jank's remaining deck would have been Warrior, and basically StrifeCro would have needed to defeat that Warrior with his Face Hunter, which is almost an impossible task.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, StrifeCro does have the Warlock and that Hunter that you mentioned still left, and Purple Jank still has to find a win with the Druid and to find a win with that Warrior. So a lot of players, when they're playing in Conquest, tend to, when they lose, to just stick with the same deck. But it always... this debate has been going on for like days now, and I've talked to many players, and I've talked to a lot of people about the effect of mind games and the effect of trying to predict what your opponent's going to do in the whole, when they lose, what are they going to pick next? Or when they win, what are they going to pick next?
Mm-hmm.
So most players tend to think that when you are going up against someone who's very predictable, a lot of the times the mind games really, really matter. Like, there's a lot of players that you can look at all their Conquest matches and look to see that they always pick the same deck when they lose.
Yeah, it's very possible. Also,
Yeah.
a lot of players think that it's all just mind games. It's all a coin flip. But
Yeah.
let's see what the players did indeed pick for the next game. Did StrifeCro pick Hunter into Warrior? And yes, he did. So that's really unfortunate for him. He would have really liked to have the Hunter run into Druid. And unfortunately, Purple Drank, he either won the mind games or he won the coin flip, depending on how you look at it.
Or maybe a little bit of both. Yeah, he was hoping to get that Druid. It's going to be so tough for him to find a win with that Hunter now. And this matchup, we haven't seen this deck from Purple yet. There is chances for Hunters to take victories in this matchup, but it is so tough. And Hunters can actually, Warriors can actually tech in cards, like Unstable Ghouls, that make the matchup just that much harder.
Yeah, we've seen, for example, Teray tech in those Unstable Ghouls, and we've seen Purple Drank tech in really weird cards before in his Warrior in previous tournaments like Pinnacle 4. Like I mentioned, Zombie Chow and Doomsayer. I don't think he's going to be teching in Doomsayer into his Warrior now, because Doomsayer was mostly for against mech mages, and mech mages just aren't as common anymore. But I do suspect that he might be teching in those ghouls, those Zombie Chows, for example.
Yeah, so with the Spectator client, we actually don't get to see the mulligans until both players mulligan away their hands. But from the look on Purple's face when he saw his cards after he mulliganed his cards away, I'm guessing he's not very happy with the cards that he got back.
Yeah, he might be running actually more of a mid-range warrior, like because his teammate is Delay, and Delay is known for those decks.
Yeah.
But yeah, this hand is certainly not very good. You really want, like, it's almost necessary for you to get either Fire War Axe, Cruel Taskmaster, Armor Smith, or Unstable Ghoul in the first few turns, or this damage that StrifeCro can potentially put on in the first few turns. It just might be too much.
Yeah, and actually the likelihood of drawing into those cards is pretty high, especially since he mulliganed away everything.
Yeah.
And this hand for StrifeCro is actually pretty decent.
Now, StrifeCro's main consideration now is, do you just play the Worgen Infiltrator, or do you coin out the Leopard Gnome as well? The main problem with coin out the Leopard Gnome is you basically give your opponent insane value with the Cruel Taskmaster, because if your opponent does have the Cruel Taskmaster, he can 2-for-1 in the opening turn, and that's just huge. On the other hand, though, this matchup is so bad for Face Hunter that you might just have to take a lot of extra risks.
This is a big risk in itself because of the threat of Fire War Axe.
Yeah, so yeah, this is another risk. So basically, he's putting on his opponent not having Fire War Axe instead of not having Cruel Taskmaster. And that was certainly a very good one because we saw Purple, indeed, he top-decked the Cruel Taskmaster.
Yeah, now with this play, if he plays 2 1-drops this turn, even with the Cruel Taskmaster next turn, that's still going to leave... it's only going to remove 1 creature from the board, and it's going to leave him floating a mana, so it's going to make his turns pretty awkward.
Yeah, I think the reason why StrifeCro, he coined out the Knife Juggler there was because both Cruel Taskmaster and Armorsmith would have been bad if he coined out both the 1-drops, but with this play, only Fire War Axe is bad, so it's more like 2 cards in your opponent's deck make this play bad, whereas 4 cards in your opponent's deck make the other play bad.
Yeah.
So just playing the odds here, I feel. Plus, this is overall, I would say, a stronger play if your opponent doesn't have the War Axe.
Yeah, and those are the sort of plays that you have to make. The sort of calculated risks. They're risky plays in that Knife Juggler could be of better use later on if it just gets removed off the board with a Fire War Axe and not getting value out of the juggles. But a calculated risk, and like you said, it's punished by less things than the other play that he had would be punished by.
Well, that's a pretty good top deck. Now StrifeCro can clear off the Cruel Taskmaster and flood the board. You probably know that your opponent doesn't have a Whirlwind or an Unstable Ghoul, or he would have certainly used it in the previous turn. So StrifeCro probably feeling very good at this point.
Yeah. This is a lot of damage that he's going to be able to put on early on, and there's not really an end in sight. And Purple really doesn't have a great hand here. He does get some health gain with the Shield Maiden, but StrifeCro's already out to a pretty big lead.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that Purple Drank is in a worse position with his Warrior than he was with his Rogue. But I guess that's how the cookie crumbles. It's kind of a tough decision, but I feel like Mad Scientist isn't really valuable in this matchup because you're mostly getting explosive traps, which are kind of garbage here.
Yeah. Ooh. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
He's putting him at 8 health. Purple Drank's face. He's like, well, that was fun.
Okay, going for the ball. I would have maybe thought about that turn a little more. Maybe trade into the Leok, perhaps. But okay, never mind. I guess he was correct. He had the confidence to do that. But unfortunately, that's actually game over.
Yes, it is. Whoa. Okay.
What
Either
happened?
way.
Yeah, either way. Yeah, so yeah, just
Missed opportunity for some
BM.
BM.
Of course. So Purple Drank really sad at this point. He lost a really favorable matchup, and he'll have to play. He's actually down from such a good start, beating his opponent's Face Hunter, with an Oil Rogue.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that the unfavorable matchups tend to be coming out on top here.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show you, even unfavorable matchups in Hearthstone, even the worst ones, or some of the worst ones, are only like 60 to 70% chance to win. So there are always times, especially when you're dealing with aggressive decks like Face Hunter, and your opponent's a controller deck, you can get stuck with really clogged up hands, and that's exactly what we saw from Purple in that last match. And StrifeCro is going to take a 2-1 lead.
Yeah, and now the tables have turned a lot. StrifeCro is only left with his Warlock deck. We don't know what that Warlock deck is, but if it's Zoo or some kind of handlock, especially the Demon handlock that StrifeCro is kind of known for,
yeah,
he's going to have good matchups going forward. If it's Zoo, it'll be pretty good against Druid, and if it's handlock, it can be potentially good against Warrior as well.
Yeah, definitely true. There's actually quite a few variations of Warlock in general right now, and quite a few variations of Zoo. It's hard to show where the line is, where Zoo Lock ends and Demon Lock begins. It's all just sort of smudged together.
Yeah, and we always talk about there being a spectrum of Zoo to Demon Lock to Handlock, but I'm not even sure if that spectrum exists anymore, because usually it's a spectrum of how greedy the deck is, but sometimes the Demon Locks are more greedy than the standard Handlocks, because not only do they have Mountain Giants and Molten Giants, but they add Void Walkers into that as well.
Yeah.
We've seen Team Nihilum do that, for example, at C-Story Cup, and they're fairly successful with it, especially Life Coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Life Coach is known to be getting away with greed sometimes. Even his Druid deck was just super slow.
Yeah.
With Nourish.
Well, to be fair, he was the innovator of Ragnaros and Druid. He kind of switched everyone around to Ragnaros, so yeah. Whoa, so it's going to be Demon Lock. Very nice. Although we do see a Sarah from Purple Drank, which means that, okay, so this is probably a good warrior for this matchup.
Yeah, it usually goes pretty late, and a lot of times the Warlock players now, one of the ways you could deal with Ysera in the past was just Siphon Soul. But a lot of lists are cutting Siphon Soul.
Yeah. StrifeCro's most famous list that he got ranked #1 Legend with last month actually has 0 Siphon Souls and only 1 L. So essentially there's only one answer in his deck for Ysera if it ever comes to that.
That's not too bad of a hand for StrifeCro here. Purple does have some removal, does have the execute, but at this stage he doesn't really know what kind of Warlock it is.
He's about to find out.
He is. I mean, it doesn't really tell you that much. We saw yesterday in the Trump versus Dart matchup, Trump actually tapped the first 2 turns.
Yeah.
Even with plays that he could have made with Zoo.
Well, with Trump Zoo, though, I feel like he was playing a slower Zoo, and it's very possible for a Warlock to play to tap on turn 2 or turn 1 with a slower Zoo. And I think what tapping on turn, or just passing on turn 1 with the coin means is, at least I'm not running a super fast Zoo. I could be running like a mid-range Zoo, but it's probably going to be a handlock here.
Yeah.
Some variation of that.
And we should probably clarify, these players submitted their deck lists before the new wing of Blackrock Mountain was released. So they are not able to use the cards from the wing that was released earlier today.
Ooh, that's actually a bad draw for StrifeCro. So now he can actually get a free Melganis here. Well, he can possibly, but it's not as guaranteed.
Would you want a free Melganis?
Yeah,
give your opponent
as well.
BGH value this early. I mean, you sort of put it on your opponent to have it. And I guess an endless chain of Void Callers isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
eventually he's going to get a Mal'Ganis.
Yeah, it's like, it's just a 3-3 that death rattles into a 3-3 that death rattles into a Mal'Ganis. I guess that's pretty good. Possibly even better than just getting a Mal'Ganis straight off from that.
Ooh, well, he actually is going to be able to... Oh!
Ooh, I think he's going to regret that.
Yeah. If he had not attacked with the ship's cannon, he could have used it to proc the execute. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter too much. He's just going to take a lot of damage. He's going to be able to use the Deathbite next turn to proc the execute, but he's going to be punished.
Dark Bomb. Not sure that matters too much. You don't really probably want to Dark Bomb a 2-3 when you have a Twilight Drake on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Mal'Ganis is actually really relevant because not only is it going to do 9 damage, I don't think the 9 damage is that relevant, but basically Purple Drank, he had 1 extra mana on the previous turn to execute, and on the following turn, he has to basically use an execute, which means he won't be able to play his Emperor freely on 6.
Yeah.
He'll have to play a Sludge Belcher instead, and that might change the game completely.
Yeah. It seems like Purple Drank a couple times has sort of not really thought out his turns as well as he maybe could have.
Okay. So I guess this play plays more around Deathbite into Twilight Drake, into Cruel Taskmaster, into Execute, and that would have actually cleared the board.
Yikes, but I mean, he has to attack into the Twilight Drake here just to sort of get it a little bit lower so he'll be able to deal with that a little bit easier the following turn. But he's at 14 health. He's at a point. I mean, these Demon Locks aren't really going to be able to do burst. So it's not that big of a deal, but still. It'll make it easier for StrifeCro to win in the late game.
Yeah, so far, this deck from StrifeCro seems to be the exact list of what he got to rank number 1 legend with. Perhaps he added in an Emperor somewhere in there, but I don't know. So this Earthring Farseer is in that deck. There's only 1 of them, and there's only 1 anti-kill bot if it's the same list.
Got to find some cards to cut for those demons to be put in.
Yep. Seems like it's going to be either a Watcher Sunfury combo or an Earthring Farseer, and I kind of prefer Earthring Farseer because the other 2 cards seem more valuable later on.
Yeah, in the Earthring Farseer, you can put your Twilight Drake out of range of...
Even Deathbite.
Even Deathbite, yeah. I mean, I guess this sort of serves the same purpose.
So, okay, so with this play, StrifeCro is, he wants to be more aggressive here. And that makes sense as well.
Another piece of removal.
I guess with the Earthring Farseer play, it puts him vulnerable to a Fire War Axe into the Earthring Farseer.
Alright, well at least he gets the Emperor Thorsan down on the board. And he's actually going to get quite a bit of value out of that because he's got some high-cost creatures in his hand.
Yeah, and StrifeCro, he can't actually deal with the Emperor now, which is certainly a problem. It's all about cutting that Siphon Soul and making your deck less reactive, but the problem is you want to be reactive in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he has an answer to Emperor.
Yeah. He can silence his Ancient Watcher and use the Mortal Coil. Or he can just silence the Emperor, but seems like being proactive with the threat.
Yeah. The problem with using the silence here is if you want to bring this game into the long term and Ysera comes down, the game will probably be over if StrifeCro can't end the game very soon. Purple is at 12 health though, so you have to consider that the game might not go long enough for Ysera to become a factor.
Yeah.
But then again, there's 2 Sludge Belchers that are 4 mana here.
Yeah, being able to make an early double Sludge Belcher turn is pretty big. And he actually decides not to utilize the silence here. It runs... Usually this deck runs 1 owl. I believe his list ran a single owl. So you don't want to be too liberal with the owl. You want to make sure you absolutely need to use it.
Yep. So Purple Drank here is just... StrifeCro, he was forcing his opponent to make the trade instead of making the trade for him. And he basically he gets to save his owl in exchange for all his opponent's cards being costed 1 less on the next turn, which is pretty fair. He can still use the Mortal Coil here, see what he draws, because right now, his hand is looking pretty poor. Mortal Coil seems to be good. Earthring Farseer seems to be good on this turn if he doesn't draw anything else. And of course, he can also tap.
Yeah, all the other cards are pretty situational. He's a long ways away from being able to use these Molten Giants, so that's another reason why he wants to keep fitting in taps on these turns.
Yeah.
Because he's on the offensive here, so it's going to be unlikely that purple's actually going to do damage to him, so just another reason why the tapping is so important. That makes his turn really awkward.
I think I still like the Earthring Farseer here, because it does make the Lotheb kind of less vulnerable to removal. You can't just Fireworks it down if you heal it. If you heal the Lotheb back up. Plus, you get to play out your curve slightly better.
Yeah. Because there is a Fireworks equipped, so otherwise it would just die. Huh.
Okay. So again, the theme is just being more offensive here, putting more on the board. And StrifeCro, I like this play from StrifeCro because he's been playing kind of a similar way every single turn for the past 3 turns, and this play kind of makes sense with that mindset.
Well, Dr. Boom is usually a good card, but right now it just feels like it might
be too slow, perhaps.
Too slow, yeah. He needs to either be proactive, or he needs to try and stall the game out for a little bit longer. Wow, the Brawl comes out. This is going to be big what comes out of this. Okay. Oh. He wins.
Yeah, basically Purple Drink, he has all the tools he needs to win this game. He just kind of needs to survive a little longer.
That Brawl ends up being pretty decent value, actually, and it puts him now in a spot where he's gained some life from Shield Block. He's got a wall up with this Sludge Belcher. He's finally starting to stabilize and has dealt with the threats. He's not going to be in danger of dying probably anytime soon. And like you said, Dr. Boom, he's got the big game hunters for the inevitable Molten Giants.
And he's got an 8-mana combo that deals 12 damage.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows that he doesn't have to deal with Mal'Ganis anymore, which can give you a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, actually, you know, Purple Dragon has actually dealt with a lot of StrifeCro's threats really well. Because this deck, if it's the same deck he's been running lately, it doesn't have Mountain Giants. So the only threats, the only immediate threats are the 2 Twilight Drakes and the 2 Void Callers. 2 Void Callers have already been dealt with. 1 Twilight Drake has already been dealt with. So you pretty much got that, and you pretty much got possibly Dr. Boom, which StrifeCro hasn't drawn yet.
Yeah, in order to win this, he's going to have to most likely get a lot of mileage out of the Lord Jaraxxus. But before he plays Jaraxxus, he needs to make sure that he's in a position where he can play Molten Giants. Because like you said, with the lack of threats, if he plays Jaraxxus too early and sort of reduces the chance that he'll ever get to play the Molten Giants, then he's just going to be sort of lacking threats.
Yeah, StrifeCro yet again making this turn awkward for Purple Drank. It's kind of the theme here, putting Watchers down and taunting them up with the Sunfury Protectors.
So he's going to utilize the Cruel Taskmaster now to be able to get through this wall here. And, I mean, this is about the safest turn he'll ever have to be able to play Dr. Boom. So now the momentum has sort of turned around a little bit.
That's the infamous StrifeCro Dread Infernal.
Yeah. The Dread Infernal is actually pretty good. There's at least when he initially put it into his deck, there was a lot of decks that ran things with 1/1 tokens. And even now still, with things like Implosion, Imp Gang Boss, and I mean Violet Teachers and Oil Rogue. Muster for Battle was a thing, but Paladins have been sort of non-existent on the tournament scene.
Okay, I guess Dr. Boom is the counter for Twilight Drake.
Yeah.
Purple Drakes has also been doing a fairly good job with keeping his opponent's health in check. That StrifeCro, he can't really deal with these Molten Giants, or he can't play the Molten Giants out really effectively.
I mean, basically here, his entire turn would be taken up by playing a Molten Giant.
Yeah.
Of course, he could tap first.
Jiraxis seems alright here, actually. If you Jiraxis and Mortal Coil, but the problem with that is, well, okay, I didn't expect that, but the problem with Jiraxis here is you don't have a lot of cards that really combine with a combo with Jiraxis well in your hand. So in that way, Jiraxis is a bit weaker. For example, you can, you don't have any Arguses, you use both Sun Fury Protectors, and you don't have a Shadow Flame in your hand.
Yeah, it's getting pretty dangerous now. Purple actually has removal for the next threat as well. So if the second Molten Giant comes down this turn, which might, because StrifeCro has seen that, hey, BGH is gone. He's only got 2 cards left in his hand.
Okay, so wow, that's actually the second L we've noticed. So StrifeCro has been making some changes into his deck.
Well, Kazan Mystic also.
Yeah, Kazan Mystic, of course. We can't forget about that. Kazan Mystic, Iron Beak, second Iron Beak Owl. I'm wondering what he's cutting, and I have to say maybe he cut a Zombie Chow.
Yep, that's possible.
For Kazan Mystic. What else might he have cut? Maybe a Sylvanas, because we haven't seen that yet. We actually haven't seen a Dr. Boom, but I don't think you can cut Dr. Boom from handlock.
Sludge Belcher?
Yeah, Sludge Belcher is another option. In the Nalum deck, that was pretty famous at the C-Story Cup. They actually, the team actually cut one of the Sludge Belchers in favor of 6 4-drop threats.
Yeah. Wow. Second Shield Slam comes into hand too. One bad thing, doesn't have an activator for the Grom Hellscream here. So even though he'll be able to put on pressure, and he can do so pretty liberally now that he's seen these Molten Giants. Usually Shield Slam at this stage can be an activator for Grom, but not with that much armor.
So you can Healbot to get out of Grom range, but with this play, it means that Jiraxis is just so much worse, because after you go Jiraxis, you won't be able to heal yourself up anymore. Oh, Harrison Jones. What a great draw. So yeah, StrifeCro, he's not playing Jiraxis out because he is afraid of that Harrison Jones, and usually if you play Jiraxis and your opponent Harrison Jones you, it's usually game over.
Yeah, usually you need to hold on to the Harrison Jones until you're at a point where your opponent will fatigue out from. You have to play it early enough to where you think that you'll get a big impact out of it before they draw into Harrison Jones, or late enough to where they'll fatigue out from actually using that as draw.
Yeah, a lot of times players of this caliber, if they see their opponent has a lot of cards in their hand, for example like 5 or 6, they actually will go Jiraxis and won't attack with the first charge of the weapon, just so their opponents will overdraw.
Yeah. But at this stage, when you have 2 cards, makes it a big liability.
Oh, that's a good one. So I think you're actually fairly safe with just playing the Dr. Boom, because you know your opponent doesn't have any more bursts going on. Pretty much so the most he can burst from his hand is 6 more with a Cruel Taskmaster and a Death Spite. And that just doesn't do it. It's only 60 damage.
Yeah. Sylvanas would be sort of a...
It puts more tension on the board.
Yeah. Maybe like the safer play in the situation. But also, I mean, Sylvanas, he can't trade into Sylvanas, but he can trade into Dr. Boom.
Ooh, there's the Cruel Taskmaster, but again, unfortunately, it's not going to be enough. I think, oh man, this Purple Drake might have to trade into Sylvanas and then Cruel Taskmaster in order to deal with it.
Wow.
And then pretty much Purple Drake's only, I feel like some of his only ways to win the game are with drawing into his Ysera or getting a big Harrison Jones off on the Jiraxis.
Which at this point, StrifeCro might be thinking, is it too risky to play Jiraxis? I mean, Shadow Flame is a great card in combination with Jiraxis.
Yeah. I'd like to see actually the card counts from both players, the number of cards remaining from both decks.
Let's see if our production magic can make it happen.
Yes, it is the power of spectator mode.
Oh.
But 3 cards, wow. So yeah, so StrifeCro, he's saying, okay, I have to do this now or never.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for him, Purple Drake does have the exact right answer.
Yeah, I mean, those Infernals coming down every turn is still going to be a pretty big deal, but now without that weapon, Jiraxis becomes quite a bit weaker.
Yeah, that being said, another reason for why he might have gone Jiraxis on that turn was because he drew the Shadow Flame, which means he'll have an answer for Harrison Jones if that ever comes down. But no, never mind.
Oh,
Purple Drank draws the Lotheb, and now he's kind of shut out of any Shadow Flame plays. So this play might just be Infernal plus Defender of Argus, which feels kind of terrible.
Sludge Belcher might even be a little bit safer.
Yeah. There's no way you can't play a taunt here because there's so much damage on board, and you know your opponent has a weapon at this point.
Yeah.
There's no chance. Literally zero chance your opponent doesn't have a weapon.
Yeah, because next turn he'll only have one card left, and you know hasn't seen both a Deathbite and a Fire War Axe as long as he's been keeping track. So all of a sudden, this looks really good for purple. And there's still opportunities for him to salvage this situation. Being able to spawn a 6/6 every single turn for 2 mana, even after losing your hands, is still a powerful play.
I think the next players that are going to this tournament chalking arena, they're all pretty happy that this game went on for so long, because now they've recorded all 30 of their opponent's decks.
Yeah.
If that ever comes to it.
Well, Ysera is quite a bit out of Shadow Flame range, so
It's kind of an understatement. Oh, there's the Zombie Chow. So there's one card in StrifeCro's deck, and I feel like one of the cards he did cut was one of the Hellfires, because we haven't seen a Hellfire yet, and I suspect that last card is a Hellfire. Wow, you just mirrored that completely.
Thank you, Draxus.
This Mortal Coil is kind of dead as well, because you actually don't want to be drawing cards at this point.
Yeah. Most likely, if it's used at all, it'll just end up being a 1 damage nuke on something that it won't actually kill. I mean, I don't really see a way that StrifeCro is going to be able to win this game. Purple has gotten back up to... Oh, I guess we got to see the last card.
Yeah,
and
it
you were
is
right.
Hellfire. So I think he cut a Hellfire, possibly he cut a Lotheb, and maybe a second Sludge Belcher for all these tech cards like Kazan Mystic, like the second Owl,
Yeah.
which can't even really be called a tech card.
Yeah.
Let's see, Dream will come down, Death's Bite. Is that lethal? No, not lethal yet.
Not quite. But I mean, he is going to be able to develop a pretty big board that's going to be tough to deal with. He wants to put out sticky creatures here if he's going to throw out anything, because he knows that he hasn't seen any AoE yet.
Yep, just playing it nice and slow. Basically, the win condition at this point is I have more cards than my opponent.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that Infernal isn't dreadful yet. Didn't get that degree.
Nope. Still 6 mana when it gets returned.
Yeah, it's also like back when Recombobulator was used in Handlock, this was one of the best targets for the Recombobulator, because no matter what you Recombobulate into, it's just so great. It's like for 4 mana, you summon a Karen Bloodhood, for example.
Yeah. Well, it actually is going to be able to clear everything off here, but without any taunts, without any ways to activate these Dread Infernals, with no AoE left.
Yeah, at this point, StrifeCro, he knows he can't win the game, but he's kind of just scouting his opponent.
Yeah.
But, like, hopefully he'll see even more cards. Like, Purple, at this point, he might... The best course of action might just be, like, not play his entire hand. Like, just keep those other cards hidden.
Well, it's not too big of a deal, because all the cards... I mean, from what we've seen all 30 cards in this deck now. It's a very standard Control Warrior deck.
No. It's standard, but it doesn't have Ragnaros, for example, no Baron Geddon, no Ragnaros, and I think those are keys for StrifeCro to remember on. So it's kind of one of those.
Alexstrasza.
Yeah, no Alexstrasza, exactly. So it's one of those. These kind of warriors have been getting more popular lately. Kind of more grindy warriors and warriors that don't try to burst your opponent down for 12. So it's more of a defensive warriors that aim to counter the metagame, counter rogues, freeze mages, and phase hunters, and then to just try to grind the game out from there.
Yeah, a lot more mid-rangey creatures, and then topping out at Ysera.
Yeah.
Pretty much instead of Alexstrasza as sort of your super late game win condition, because you'll just outvalue your opponent with their cards. So that's going to tie it up at 2-2. So the last matchup is going to be Purple Drank still needs to find a win with the Druid.
Yes.
And StrifeCro is going to go on to the Warlock.
Yeah, yet another 2-2 score. We've been seeing a lot of these matches in the WCA go down to the final game. And yet again, the tables have turned. Now it's purple with the 1, I feel, has the lead because most players do believe that Druid, mid-range Druid, is favorable against Handlock, especially Demon Handlock.
Yeah, it makes all their turns awkward later in the game. Once you get into the position where you're having to play around combo, pretty much affects every single turn that you make. And eventually you just run out of stuff to block that damage.
That stuff is good, I hear.
Stuff is...
Especially in Hearthstone.
Stuff is definitely good. I love stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're all pretty materialistic in our own ways, right?
Oh,
You want
so deep.
You want more things on the board as possible.
Profound statements here.
So pretty unexciting hands for both players to start off.
Yeah.
I expect to see complete mulligans for both players. Although we have seen Life Coach, for example, he's kept Molten Giants in like really weird situations. For example, he's kept Molten Giants versus Druid before.
Wow.
I'm sure he has an explanation, but I just can't actually imagine that at all.
Well, I've actually seen quite a few games of Druid versus Handlock or this heavier Demon Lock where a Druid will just straight up win on like turn 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's certainly possible.
If they get an early board and then Savage Roar. Like if the first card that you're gonna play is like a Mountain Giant, or I guess that's against traditional Handlock or a Twilight Drake. Sometimes that's possible.
Now, I've heard the argument before that in this matchup, Druid versus Handlock, that you actually don't keep Innervate in your opening hand, and you keep cards like Ancient of Lore and Azure Drake just to cycle your deck more. It's certainly interesting.
I can believe it.
With the advent of cards like Emperor Thorazane, and even with the popularity of more Azure Drakes being in Druid, I feel like the Druid matchup has gotten even better. Because you do want to cycle, you want to draw into those Keepers, draw into those BGHs, and finally draw into those combos. Those are usually and typically the best cards in your deck for this matchup.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of those pieces right now. He does have Ancient of Lore to be able to refill his hand. He does have the Keeper of the Grove to be able to deal with an early Twilight Drake.
Okay, it's interesting. Yeah, with and when you're not playing a completely standard handlock with Mountain Giants, you can afford to do plays like this. It now with a different play with handlock, for example, he would have had to tap for possible Mountain Giants, but because he doesn't have Mountain Giants, there's no possibility of this screwing him over.
Yeah, this is a tough situation, though, because now he's faced with an innervated out Sludge Belcher and all he has is an Earthen Ring Farseer.
So the question here is, do you just Void Caller here? We have seen Life Coach throw out a Void Caller instead of a Twilight Drake even, just to bait out a Silence.
Yeah. Just the threat of what it might summon can be enough to get a Silence, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
That's going to be really nice for StrifeCro. A lot of value there from the Void Caller. Kind of a bluff even.
And those silences are actually pretty crucial in this matchup.
Yeah, there's just so many things you want to silence in this deck. Both Void Callers,
Sludge
Belchers, Sylvanas, and who can forget Twilight Drakes?
Sometimes even Mal'Ganis.
So many possibilities.
There are a lot of possibilities indeed. There's not many great ones. I would think that one of the 5 drops will be coming down.
Yeah, Lotheb usually is great to stand up against Sludge Belchers, but this Sludge Belcher has already taken some hurt. So I like matching it with the Sludge Belcher of his own here.
Yeah, you can even protect your Void Caller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like this better than Lotheb.
Yeah, both sort of have the same effectiveness in that they'll trade for the Keeper as well as the damaged Sludge Belcher. But like you said, this one also makes it so he protects that Void Caller. Even though it sounds, it's still a body.
Yeah. So there's a possibility of Ancient of Lore or Lotheb here. And I feel like the effect of the Lotheb limiting spells isn't too impactful. So you might as well go for the Ancient of Lore, give you more options in future turns, and possibly draw into combo pieces faster.
Yeah, he runs double combo here, Force of Nature, and we've seen double Savage Roar as well, so That's pretty common. I see some players cut one Force of Nature for maybe like an additional 6 drop.
Yeah, certainly possible, but I feel like with the addition of Emperor Thorzen, most players have gone from one set of combos or one Force of Nature plus 2 Savage Roars into double combo.
Yeah. Just because the likelihood that you get Force of Nature in your hand, at least one Force of Nature in your hand to be reduced. No, it's because a lot of times it gives you the flexibility to just use one Force of Nature early on to clear the board and still know that you'll have combo pieces later on.
Well, it also gives you the flexibility to double Force of Nature on his turn. And I've
Yeah.
actually seen that in the tournament, in the Xfinity tournament, for example. RDU got that combo off. It dealt 12 damage and he face palmed. He was, unfortunately, he was kind of punished for that later on because Sho in the grand finals against RDU, he was able to get Force of Nature, Savage Roar without any innervates with the Emperor.
Also opens up double Force of Nature, Innervate Savage Roar with Emperor Thorstein.
True.
26 damage.
Yeah, the Hellfire choice, I like that there because usually in this matchup you don't get a lot of value from Hellfire. You can do Hellfire against Shades, but StrifeCro, he really values the board and he wants to be able to control the board every single turn. And because of that, he most likely won't want to use Hellfire in future turns, even against Shades.
Yeah, a lot of times Hellfire comes down in this matchup on like turn 4 or coin down on turn 3 to deal with the first iteration of a Pilot Shredder plus a Shade of Naxxramas.
StrifeCro probably regretting this decision to play Kazan Mystic.
Yeah.
I feel like he's bringing this card specifically because he knows Chalky is in the group, and Chalky is very known for playing various Hunter decks.
And also Mage. He's been playing a lot of Freeze Mage
That's true.
ever since the ESL Legendary Series where he was one of the only players to bring it. He's been playing a lot of it, so...
Yeah, in this WCA format, it's kind of like the Kingwin Pro League format, for example, which in which like one of the best strategies is actually to bring decks that are good against your opponents instead of bringing decks that are just good against the field. After all, you only have to face 2 players, and the total pool of players is basically 4.
Yeah. This one, it might be a little bit riskier because you're not guaranteed to play all the players in the group. It is a single elimination group, so StrifeCro, yeah, he targeted out Chalky and maybe to an extent Reynad, because Reynad does play a lot of Mage. He does play some Hunter, but it means that if he's matched up against a player like Purple Drank, he may not necessarily bring a Mage or Hunter, which he didn't.
This turn
And it
is so
could punish
awkward.
him.
The only minion you can actually play like on the board is Dread Infernal, and Dread Infernal kills your own Lothep.
Yeah.
You might just have to go for it though.
Yeah, Kazan Mystic would be like the only other thing that he could play, but that doesn't really make sense because then it wouldn't really trade into much of anything.
You could Kazan Mystic and then silence the Zombie Chow to prevent you from going too high in health, so you activate your Molten Giants.
Yeah.
Next level plays right there.
Yeah, this is the only really play that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good, but it's basically what you have to do.
Ooh. Oh yeah, see this is one of those flex plays where he's actually going to use the first Force of Nature just to clear off a creature here. Basically traded 6 mana for 6 mana. And I believe he was actually 1 mana off from lethal there, from 22 health. Yeah, definitely. With the Force of Nature Savage Roar. But he sets it up for next turn, and now this is at that point where StrifeCro has to play around it.
So if he plays around it, I feel he either has to use a Sun Fury or a Shadow Flame here.
Yeah.
What can he Shadow Flame though?
Kazan
Kazan
Mystic.
Mystic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that might honestly...
he can't even Molten Giant and Sun Fury Protector because he would still die.
Yeah, that might be the best play, to be honest. Well, at least it's a use for Kazan Mystic.
Yeah,
You're like,
there
okay,
you go. Shadow Flame fodder.
I didn't play this card for nothing.
Yeah, I think that's his only play. He has to Shadow Flame the Kazan Mystic. He plays Molten Giant here and Sun Fury Protectors. Force of Nature Savage Roar still kills him. There's a chance that he might be thinking, well, he just played one Force Nature, so how likely is it that he has the second? And if he plays Dr. Boom, then that's exactly what he's thinking. Actually,
Oh, Dr. Boom actually...
yeah, with Sunfury Protector, yeah.
There's a possibility that StrifeCro survives here. So if you force the Nature Savage Roar, you kill the Dr. Boom with your Loatheb, then you kill the Boombot with your face, and then you hope that one of the Boombots Boombots kills one of the minions, and then you're still gonna be at 16 HP versus only 14 points of damage on the field.
Wow.
It's actually very likely for the Boombot to kill one of your either one of your trees or the remaining.
Yeah, it would just have to do 2 damage to any one of the creatures that's on the board.
So the chances of that happening are so 4 and 5 that it hits one of those creatures.
Well, he probably wouldn't trade in Loatheb first to reduce the likelihood.
That's risky as well, though, because if
is.
the Boombot does 4 to Loatheb, that's so bad. That's even worse than the opposite possibility. So it's either 4 and 5 or 4 and 6, and then the chances of it dealing at least 2 damage are 3 and 4. So the chances of it missing lethal with that play are actually very, very high.
Yeah. Actually, is there...
Oh, so this actually killed the zombie child. 3 damage to Loatheb. So
well, that
close.
Boombot would have done 3 damage to Loatheb, so...
So once again, lethal is set up. And StrifeCro, he's looking to possibly take this game back. He doesn't have a Sun Fury anymore, though, and that was a crucial card. Shadow Flame, again, he would have to Shadow Flame the Kazan Mystic or something similar.
And that would be his whole turn. He could tap, Shadow Flame the Kazan Mystic, and not develop anything onto the board.
Well, he could maybe tap a Void Caller, Shadow Flame the Void Caller. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and if you're going to do that, you might as well just play Mal'Ganis from your hand anyway.
Basically, that my play would have just dealt 3 damage.
Yeah.
To the, well, you do draw a card, though.
This is true.
So, Void Caller, Shadow Flame, the Void Caller, and then tap. Ooh, next level plays, because the Mal'Ganis...
The Mal'Ganis would be out, and you'd get the tap for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like the best way for him to survive here and still put a threat on the board is to just play the Mal'Ganis straight up. Wow. It is punished quite hard by BGH, but...
Yeah, so there's two more draws for purple to draw BGH. Pretty likely, I would say.
How many... Is it likely? He's got 15 cards left.
Keeper is also viable.
Yeah, and it looks like he's pretty much narrowing himself into the Keeper corner here.
Oh.
No BGH.
No BGH, but that's still good. Kind of. Because even if he swipes here and trades in the Druid of the Claw, it means that he won't be able to set up a board. And that will give his opponent more chances to develop his own board. Suntree Protector is huge as well.
Yeah. It is, but at the same time, he doesn't really have many ways to put big creatures on the board for the Suntree Protector to be worth it. Because he can't even take damage right now. So that Molten Giant's always going to cost 10. Biggest thing he could Suntree Protector here is a Void Caller. And now that Mal'Ganis has been seen, Dread Infernal has been seen, I don't think purple is really going to worry too much about what's going to come out of that Void Caller.
Yeah, pretty much it's only Jiraxis.
Yeah.
Oh, taunting up a Sylvanas is very good.
Oh, yeah. Tapping for free is also very good.
As always. I think here you can... Will StrifeCro go with the StrifeCro play and only taunt up one of these creatures, and I think that's also very valuable if he trades into the Druid of the Claw, for instance.
To protect his Mal'Ganis.
Yeah. I remember StrifeCro on his stream once, he got 2 Void Callers, and he got Mal'Ganis from one of them and Jiraxis from the other. And then he had a Sun Fury. He was like, I guess I'll protect my my 9/7 with my 5/17. I guess.
Yeah. Those in combination together are pretty deadly. Or Defender Vargas Jaraxxus. It's like nearly impossible to deal with.
Wait. Okay, so that's still not lethal.
Nope.
It's close though.
It is.
It's actually 1 damage off lethal. So if your opponent had like an innervate, you would lose in this scenario. But it is overall a really strong play.
1 damage off lethal.
Alright, with Force of Nature Savage Roar.
Okay, I see. Wow. This could be a turnaround for StrifeCro here. He still has to play around the combo every single turn. Which you can tell all of his turns are super tough just for the fact that he has to play around it. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of players consider Druid to be slightly favored in this matchup, is just because, I mean, a lot of his plays so far have been suboptimal. He would have loved to develop other things on these turns if he had been higher health, or if even just the threat of the combo wasn't looming.
Yeah, Purple's going to be so happy that he's going to be able to do this play.
Yeah.
But this is also one of his final turns in order to develop the board.
All right, so what does StrifeCro have any way out of this situation?
Shadow Flame. He has to Shadow Flame something.
Yeah. He can Shadow Flame his PGH, but then he's going to be really sad
Well,
when Rag comes down the following turn.
You can Shadow Flame your Sylvanas here, and then you steal a Slime, which
That's
gives
true.
you one more taunt.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. If he taunts up the Sylvanas and Force of Nature Savage Roar is used, then what happens?
I think even if he steals 4 damage away, you're still looking at 10 damage plus. No, I think he'll still be alive. Because either way, if he Force of Nature Savage Roar here, he'd have to trade the Sludge Belcher in.
It's going to be exactly 14 damage again.
Yeah. The Sludge Belchers, yeah, because either way, even if it steals the Sludge Belcher Slime, that'll still be 1 damage, one of the creatures blocking. So it'll still block 4 damage regardless of what it steals.
Yeah, just one of the... Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this, but one of the skills I respect the most from StrifeCro here is just being able to play around this combo. And he's done it fairly well every single turn.
Yeah.
Oh, no. He stole the Keeper.
Yikes.
That's horrible. Purple Drink might actually have to clear this board.
Yeah, because now he has no combo left in. He has no threat of the combo. I mean, no matter what way he did that play, I don't think there was any way he could have ended up with lethal. Because even if he had stolen the Slime and been able to hero power into it, he would have done 16 total damage. So 16 was the absolute most damage he could have done with a Force of Nature Savage Roar combination.
That's true. And that feels so bad. And he can't even deal more damage. Like, that's...
18 health now StrifeCro is sitting at.
Yeah, StrifeCro is in a commanding position at this point. Like, StrifeCro, he has to put his opponent on the second set of combo, but he knows that StrifeCro knows that Purple Drank, he's already used both Force of Natures, so he doesn't have to fear a full combo anymore.
Yeah. The only thing he has to worry about now is Savage Roar. And with 2 cards in his hand, the threat of the Savage Roar is actually pretty low. Getting close to the Molten Giant as well. The one thing that Purple does have going for him is he has Rag, but there's a BGH waiting on the other end for him. He needs to rely on Rag actually clearing off a creature. And with an Ancient Watcher on the board, there's a chance that that Rag may be just completely useless. It may just spend an entire turn playing the Rag. If it hits Ancient Watcher and just gets BGH, then that's pretty much game because Purple is just running out of threats.
Yeah, you can see the look on Purple's face at this moment. He kind of knows, I feel, that this game is probably not too winnable for him. 2 Wraths are some of the best draws in the game.
Yeah.
He can cycle his deck, but...
Yeah, he's going to try and increase the likelihood that Rag is going to hit something worthwhile here by bringing the Twilight Drake down to 8 and clearing off the Iron Beak Owl. He needs to I mean, I guess that's an activated Ancient Watcher, so in reality he's taking off the value of 2 creatures, but now this is just going to get BGH'd.
BGH tap Molten Giant, perhaps.
Yep. And one of the things we didn't mention is that a lot of his bigger threats haven't been played. StrifeCro spent the whole game trying to play around combo, or a lot of the game just trying to play around not dying, that he wasn't able to really develop threats any of the turns. So now, yeah, this is just...
Yeah, I like this play better than the Molten Giant.
Yeah.
Molten Giants can be cheaper in the future. Plus, you've already seen 2 Keepers, I believe.
Yeah.
And you know your opponent can't deal with the Twilight Drake. So yet another small minion that Purple Drake is drawing. It's going to be so bad. Oh, yeah, there goes the Keeper.
He does draw BGH.
Yeah, BGH, my bad.
I mean, it sort of looks like a Keeper of the Grove.
Well, it is a 4-2, which is kind of like a 2-4.
You're Hearthstone dyslexic. But he is going to have a way to deal with one of these Molten Giants, but I mean... I just still don't see a way out of this. The only way out is if StrifeCro somehow manages to not kill him, and the shade gets big enough to where Savage Roar bursts him down, but it's going to be a lot of turns before that happens. And I don't think Purple has any burst left in his deck. He's used both Force Natures, 1 Savage Roar. He's used both swipes, I do believe.
Yeah, he had to use both swipes to deal with all the Mal'Ganis, for example, and all the various minions on the board.
Yeah.
Yes, Purple Drink does the best he can to clean up, but Shadow Flame will be coming down momentarily.
Yeah. And he concedes.
Wow. That was actually a really amazing Game 5. I thought StrifeCro was on the back foot the entire game, but he played so well. I really have to give it for StrifeCro here.
Yeah, being able to calculate the Sylvanas play, just using Sunfear on the Sylvanas, if it would block enough damage to prevent him from dying. And it did. And I don't know if Purple Drake thought that he didn't really have any other play besides going for the Force of Nature Savage Roar anyway. But it was such an underwhelming turn from him. He basically gave up his only threat of winning, or his only way of winning, in order to just clear off the board. So that's going to eliminate Archon's chances from having an all-Archon final. Of course, we saw Amaz in the first week, Firebat, or Amaz in the first day, Firebat in the second day, and Zalay yesterday. So their buddy, their coach, Purple Drake, is not going to be joining him, but we still have, I mean, lots of great games.
Yeah, we're gonna have our feature game of the day, perhaps. Chalky versus Reynad coming up next. Chalky, unfortunately, he wasn't world first today for the race for Blackrock Mountain. Unfortunately, Ixar beat him out for that spot. But let's see if he can get first in this group. He's kind of had like a second place curse overall.
Yeah, that's true.
And it'll be really bad for him to get second place yet again today.
Does a qualifier count? Even if he wins today, if he gets second place at the actual LAN, is that still a second place curse?
That's still second place. Because, yeah, not only did he get 4 second places in his recent tournaments, but he got second place in the race for Blackrock Mountain, which isn't even like a tournament, right?
Yeah, and it's still a second place. But let us know what you guys think about the game that just happened, or about any of the upcoming matches. You can tweet at us with the hashtag WCA2015. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, WCA_America. We'll be reading those tweets throughout the day, and also we'll be updating you with other games besides Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Dota 2, Crossfire, all of the World Cyber Arena action that's going to be coming in the next couple weeks. But Chalky versus Reynad is coming up next. It's going to be a great match. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.